Greetings, respected viewers. I'm George from Ireland, speaking to you from an undisclosed location. Anyway, I would like to speak about His Royal Highness Prince Andrew, the Duke of York, because just the other day he broadcast his interview on BBC about how the whole Giuffre Epstein affair. And the consensus is that it was really bad news. One newspaper described it as a car crash, him granting this interview, because the controversy regarding himself and Mr. Epstein dates way back to 2008. And after 11 years, this is the first time he's gone public about this. He's previously released statements, but not actually spoken on camera or had his courtiers speak to the press on his behalf. But this is the first time he's faced up. And as I say, most people don't think that that was injudicious. Presumably he was advised against it. Was he ill-advised? Was he counselled not to do it by his PR team and he went ahead heedless of their expertise? Perhaps. Anyway, so first of all, who is Prince Andrew? Well, he is Queen Elizabeth's second son, born in 1960. And the second son of the monarch usually gets the title Duke of York. So on his wedding day in 1986, he was granted the title Duke of York. He married Miss Sarah Ferguson. They had two daughters, Eugenie and Beatrice. That's that. One of them got married. Eugenie got married, I think it was last year. So he went to Gordonstoun School. He then went to Dartmouth to train as a Royal Naval Officer. He was a naval officer for several years, fought the Falklands in 1982, and that is significant because he claims one of the statements that this Miss Roberts made about him is bogus. She claimed that he was perspiring profusely, and he said, well, that is completely provably false, since I suffered an overdose of adrenaline in the Falklands conflict, and until recently I didn't break sweat at all, but we shall see. And I'm surprised to use that rather indecorous word, sweat. Surely royalty would know to say perspire, but maybe as a mere bourgeois I'm trying a bit too hard. This is sort of counter-signalling on behalf of those who are blue-blooded. But he was simply quoting the word that she said. Anyway, so Emily Maitlis, one of the BBC's veteran and very capable interviewers, she questioned him. Some people think that she didn't grill him aggressively enough. Was she giving him too much of an easy ride? And nobody said that she fed him the questions beforehand, which people would always say, oh, the BBC is too pro-establishment and they will try and help the royal family out. We'll see. So the BBC is usually their channel of choice for these such revelatory interviews. Now, is it a mistake going to the media like this? Well, the best thing for him with this whole story would just be forgotten. Now, it's not being forgotten, so I suppose he said he had to try a new tack. For 11 years, he's tried to keep stum on this one. With a dignified silence, this strategy was not paying off for him. So he couldn't simply rise above it. And that's why he took this unusual step of tackling the issue head on. Valiant or foolhardy? You be the judge. I'm minded to go with the latter, but perhaps that's the majority view. Am I being led by the crowd? Maybe I am. So he knew Mr. Epstein for years. Now, by the 90s, Prince Andrew's Royal Naval career was more or less over. He wasn't promoted that high, that was fine. They don't expect him to have a high substantive rank because he'll have an honorary rank and a substantive rank. And he says that senior Royal Naval officers have no difficulty distinguishing between the two. When he's there in his honorary capacity, they will be saluting him and very deferential. But when he's in his substantive rank, if he's got something wrong, they won't hold back and they'll give him a tongue lashing. And when he went to Dartmouth, he had to do the same as the other officer cadets, as in put through his paces. They're getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning to go jogging, and obviously being bawled out for the slightest infraction and all the rest of it. Don't go easy on him. And obviously when he went to the Falklands, he could have been killed. Margaret Thatcher's government was deeply chary about this. If a prince was killed, would that be a blow to national morale? If he was taken prisoner, he might be tortured into making some broadcaster demoralise the British public. But anyway, it went ahead, and the Queen, despite governmental jitters, insisted that her son be put in jeopardy. Was that good of her because she wasn't expecting her son to be kept safe? I suppose it was, but doesn't that fly in the face of the whole idea of royalty, which is completely inegalitarian? Like in the First World War, the Prince of Wales, later King Edward VIII, he was kept several miles from the front line. As Field Marshal Lord Kitchener said, I don't mind your being killed, but I do object to your being captured. Well, like Prince Harry wasn't to go to Iraq, that was told it wasn't happening. He went to Afghanistan. It was all meant to be, incognito, but of course the American military found out and people blabbed and then he had to be removed. So that's the thing about the royal family. Are they special or not? They can't really seem to make their mind up, nor can many members of the public. They want them to be exalted, and I do. At the same time, they want them to be ordinary and not to get above themselves. So we seem to want to have it both ways. So Prince Andrew, by the late 90s, he wasn't performing naval duties really, and he became a roving ambassador for British trade. And he was forging links with emerging markets, particularly Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, and elsewhere. And he knew Ghislaine Maxwell socially. So Ghislaine is the daughter of the late Robert Maxwell. Robert Maxwell, this tycoon who moved here from Slovakia, fluent in several languages, always cozying up to communist dictators, set up his own publishing house, and things like that. Very wealthy guy, owned the Daily Mirror, but it all came crashing down. His business empire collapsed in about 1992, had a very sympathetic relationship with the KGB and other Eastern Bloc intelligence agencies, and he was in debt hugely and just couldn't even service his interest payments, was very close to the Mossad, that's the Israeli Secret Service. But anyway, he fell off his yacht off the coast of Spain in about 1992, or was he pushed off and drowned? Anyway, that was the end of the Maxwells. So Ghislaine Maxwell grew up very wealthy, born in Paris to a French mother and a Slovakian Jewish father who was a British citizen. She went to public school, she went to Oxford University, and has really been a full-time professional nothing all her life, a social butterfly. But she was in New York in the late 80s trying to establish a presence for her family, and in that capacity she met Giuffre Epstein, was his girlfriend for some time, rather being left on the shelf. She's 60 or something, never wed, and was Epstein going to prop the question? He never did. But because she moved in British high society, she knew Prince Andrew, and sometimes she was invited to stay at Windsor Castle, and Epstein came as her +1. So that was that. So that's how he supposedly met her. But things went badly wrong for Epstein in 2008, and he was convicted of unlawful sexual activity with a minor. So in Florida, he had met this 14-year-old girl and paid her some money to perform a lap dance and perform frottage on him, something like that. That was the size of it. I know it's illegal, I know it's bad. Now, but the defense argument is he was unaware of her age, assumed that she was 18. Did she lie to him and claim that she was 18? I've not heard that she did say that she was 18. But anyway, that's all he's convicted of. I know there are all sorts of other rumours, but the only thing he's found guilty of. But anyway, that was 2008. So sometime after that, Prince Andrew flew to New York. He went to see Epstein. According to His Royal Highness, it was to say, I'm afraid that our friendship is over now, and, you know, Caesar's wife must be above suspicion, as it were. So that's that. But he wasn't going to do it by telephone because that seemed the coward's way out. He was going to have the moral decency to do it face-to-face. Well, except that his face-to-face took several days. He stayed in Epstein's place. Now, the prince admits this was now an error of judgment, and they're photographed walking around Central Park having this confab. So that was the end of their friendship, supposedly, but that was about 2 years after Epstein's conviction. And obviously a lot more has come to light about, well, Epstein was accused of several more serious sex crimes. He died in prison a couple of months ago. Was it suicide or was he murdered? There is a question mark over that one. And Lady Ghislaine Maxwell, sorry, she's not a lady. There was a yacht her father called Lady Ghislaine after her. She was the favourite of his several daughters. She's gone to ground, and people saying, oh, she was an enabler. I have no idea if that's true. I'm not libeling her. The presumption of innocence extends to the prince. It extends to Miss Maxwell. But there was this American woman, Miss Roberts, who claims that here in London, at the age of 17, she copulated with Prince Andrew. Now, the age of consent in Great Britain is 16. So, providing it was consensual, that was an entirely lawful encounter. She could have got married to him at 16, for goodness sake. Well, with parental permission. Even without parental permission, she could have got married at 18. But sexual intercourse at the age of 16 is lawful here. So I don't think Florida's got extraterritoriality on that one. But supposedly, well, according to this woman, she copulated with the prince in a number of other locations. I don't know what the age of consent is in those various other jurisdictions. So there we are, claiming that he was blind drunk. Now, anybody who knows the prince knows that almost uniquely for a social set, he is teetotal, hasn't consumed a drop of alcohol in years. But was she in the same location with him at the same time? Possibly, according to flight logs. So Anyway, it seems to have been injudicious for him to give this interview with Emily Maitlis. People are saying that. I don't think it's quite an ornament to the House of Windsor. People say that he's rather haughty. I know a prince might make you like that. Others are very down-to-earth and approachable. There was an incident here in the gardens of Buckingham Palace a few years ago when the police heard there was an intruder in the grounds and confronted the intruder, and a royal protection officer drew his weapon, and Prince Andrew said, "It's me, put it down," and was irate. Well, the police officer was doing his job. They're meant to be vigilant, and they're meant to challenge someone as an intruder. The so-called intruder was actually Prince Andrew. It wasn't an intruder at all. But if you're a police officer, if you believe there is an intruder, you would go to confront that person, wouldn't you? Drawing your weapon, it would be the sensible thing to do, because if someone climbs over that wall, you'd have to assume they're armed. They're there with evil intent. They're there to assassinate the Queen. And if he hadn't done that, that would have been lack of vigilance. So there we are. And as an ex-serviceman himself, I thought Prince Andrew might have been a bit more sympathetic. That is assuming what I've read in the media is correct. So Prince Andrew, his marriage to to Miss Sarah Ferguson ended in about 1992. Divorce proceedings were initiated, and the divorce was finalised, became absolute in 1996. It was only after the divorce proceedings were initiated that she was seen with her balding Texan financial advisor licking her toes at this pool in the south of France while she sunbathed topless. John Bryan, the toxic Texan, the abominable toe man. And Prince Andrew, well, he's known as Randy Andy in the 90s. There was even a rumour that he had the pox. I've no idea if that's true or not. Not that it reflect the least bit of discredit on him if he did. So there he is. And people say that he was acting in his own interests rather than those of the realm when he was a trade envoy. Okay, was he really serving the common weal when he sold his house? This Kazakh oligarch paid £3 million over the asking price. This is in 1990s prices. That's some serious dough for a man who's not exactly poor, who gets about £300,000 per year from the taxpayer, tax-free, as well as all his expenses picked up. He's obviously always flying business class or even a private jet, always playing in presidential suites, everything paid for. So not that much is asking of him in return. Now he's taken a lot of flack for a supposed amicable relationship with Nursultan Nazarbayev, Goga Ashkenazi, who's this Kazakh British businesswoman here in London, Timur Kulibayev, and various kleptocrats in Kazakhstan. But then again, he is tasked with forming a cordial relationship with leaders, both political and business, in other countries, right? That is his mission. And he'd be derelict in his duty if he didn't do so. So there's no negligence in this regard. Whether he likes them or not, it pays to give the impression that he likes them and to get along with them. So people have accused him of mollycoddling to dictators. Should the UK be selling weapons to Bahrain or not? Now, that's not his call, but if he's trying to maximise profits for UK PLC, then he has to increase business opportunities. It could be that the government decides it's not going to do so for legal or ethical reasons, but if he was saying that they should, well, is that interfering? Arguably, if he's saying that they shouldn't, perhaps even more, because, as I say, his role is to maximise the amount of money made by the UK. Now, as I say, the government can say, well, we're not going to do that, even though it would bring in a handsome profit because it would be immoral or something like that. But there we are. So I think sometimes he has been treated a little bit unfairly. He's not too ill-used. Now, the whole Giuffre Epstein thing, some of the mistakes were he wasn't remorseful enough. He didn't express sympathy for the victims. The thing is, he didn't commit any of these crimes. Certainly, according to himself, he didn't. I don't believe that he did. I don't know that he's innocent, but as I say, because it's not been proven, I have to assume he's not. Notably, no police force in the United States has asked to question him. There'll be no extradition proceedings initiated. This woman, Miss Roberts, she's false accused Professor Alan Dershowitz. I think that's broadly accepted now. So her credibility is gravely impugned by that. So I don't think we can regard her as an honest or reliable witness. I wouldn't put a lot of credit on her words. Now, just because she's lied once doesn't mean that everything she's ever said is a lie, but there we are. So anyway, so Prince Andrew, well, what would be wise for him? Perhaps a long period of silence, keeping a low profile might be wise. Various people, who've worked in the Foreign Office don't have a terribly high opinion of him. So yeah, that is Prince Andrew, and there are always these rumours coming around that he's going to remarry Sarah Ferguson. I have no idea if that's true. I mean, and what kind of a role model was she? so profligate, spending like millions of pounds in debt, asking the Queen to bail her out after she divorced his son. Well, the Queen has absolutely no responsibility for this woman's spending, all right? This woman should spend less and earn more. What business of the Queen is it to bail her out? How disgraceful, always trading on this, always on the make and the take, grubbing, selling her name dropping, really disgraceful. A woman, never did anything in higher education, nothing wrong with that, not a fantastic role model, not successful in any career, or hardly had any job that anyone would recognise. What is there to admire? She was a member of the royal family. She hasn't been a member of the royal family for quite a long time, and that's because of her adultery. Okay, possibly because of Prince Andrew's adultery as well. Now, I don't care if somebody commits adultery, but most people would say that's not idyllic behaviour. It's not something they would want a lot of people to emulate. She's not particularly trustworthy, and I don't think she did it with her husband's approval and all the rest of it. So I think whenever things are going badly in the media for the prince, they always bring this one out. Oh, he and Sarah Ferguson are going to get back together. They do actually apparently get on quite well, and sometimes shared a house long after they divorced, and get along well with their children. So that's it. Anyway, that is Prince Andrew. So have we heard the last of it? I doubt it, actually. The timing is significant. Why now? For 11 years, not a word. Why now? Now that Epstein is safely dead. I suppose as Epstein can't be prosecuted, he could be. And notably, Ghislaine Maxwell, who some people accused of being an enabler of all this, the police have now asked to speak to her. She's not been charged with anything. I don't actually know her whereabouts. Is she in the United States or back in this country? She's also a French citizen. It might be smart to go there because France does not extradite its own citizens. Roman Polanski, take a bow. She's eligible for Israeli citizenship, presumably maybe Slovak too. So where she is right now, I have no idea. So the other thing is we're in the midst of a general election. So I suppose he knows it won't be as high up the news agenda as it otherwise would be, Prince Andrew, which might have been part of the reason for doing it now. That if it went badly, it won't be as prominent as it would be under ordinary circumstances. Okay, so that's all about this Prince Andrew and Jeffrey Epstein furore. I think it was foolish, to say the least, to stay at Epstein's house for several days, as he acknowledged. He could have done a phone call. If he had to meet him at all, he didn't have to stay to meet with him. And why not just stay in a hotel? Why actually stay in the guy's house? Are you that hard up? Are you that much of a skinflint? It astonishes me how tight-fisted multi-billionaires are. You know, you could afford to splash out on a hotel. It doesn't have to be a 4-star hotel. You get all this money that you didn't earn. So come on, cough up. There we are. That's Prince Andrew, who as Chris Bryant said, does not add luster to the royal diadem. So please follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, book lessons with me in history, religious studies, politics and government, French, English as a foreign language, English literature, geography, any other subjects. For A-level, GCSE, common entrance, international baccalaureate. Book me as a tour guide in London. I edit documents. I translate documents from French, Spanish, Italian, German, Romanian and Russian and things like that. Okay, goodbye.